On a crab boat in the Bering Sea. What kind of crew can be liked by all captains? It's not hard work every day. The crew has to pay more because of your efforts. What they like most is a man with a good tongue. He wasted his tongue on crabbing. This episode begins aboard the Northwest. After I dropped Mandy off, they went back to their previous cage position. Right now, White's on the phone with Mandy. Crews are removing dozens of centimeters of ice. It looks like the end is coming on board. When White's done with Mandy, Mandy told White and Clark to be careful. Then she hung up. Then the view goes to the legend. The timeline came right after Anderson finished unloading. Anderson decided to risk crossing the sea again, for no other reason than to save time. Another point is the weather comparison. Plus, the ship is light after unloading. Anderson sensed it wouldn't be so bad this time. The crew are resting after a busy night. It's just Anderson and the spotter in the cab. But then a 6-meter wave hit. Anderson was furious. Says he shouldn't trust the weather forecast. He then asked the observer if he had seen the guide float. The observer said he did not see the chicken feathers. But it's still the same thing. Anderson just went for it, with waves crashing against the hull. The beeping in Anderson's mouth never stops. A sudden wave hit when neither of them was looking. Anderson sobered up, turned on the alarm, and called the crew to wake up. As time came half an hour later, they made it out of the shallow water. Seeing the floating Anderson was relieved. But he doesn't have time to rest, because he had to check the bottom of the boat for leaks. After all, that was a pretty rough bottom. Anderson then decided to go to Dutch Harbor, ask a diver to help him look under the boat. The Winona, 63 miles northeast, where Sean came from this time, where his father used to fish for cod. On deck, the crew has begun to cast cages. Sean missed 3 days in Dutch Harbor the other day. So far, he hasn't caught a single fish. So Sean used a family secretary. It's about adding a little technology to the bait, then double the amount of food. He figured it would help him catch up. Then Sean was told by the crew that there was no food. Sean just went to sleep, tried to whip the crew in charge of procurement to death. I couldn't say anything for a long time, but I still have to finish the crab pot. All they could do was fill the bait with herring. Try to fill the remaining 2 crab pots, with the last crab pot into the sea. What punishment did Sean begin to want for the crew? Especially since the crew member who made the mistake was a novice. He has to impress this crew member. So Sean told the deck captain to put him up to his old tricks. Then Sean came on deck. The crew brought up a GG cod. Sean said it was to punish Will for his carelessness. He'll lick the cod with his tongue. Will went numb when he heard the punishment. But then I thought it was my fault after all. So he gathered up 18 points of courage. The crew roared with laughter after the ceremony. Even Sean praised Will's bravery. Will, on the side, could only gargle. He was really crying this time. Then Sean trotted all the way back to the captain's cabin. Will is still gargling. 320 miles northwest of the Northwest. They don't have the best weather here. Old White is now in the previous day cast cage position catch. But because of the fog on the sea, cause Old White this presbyopia cannot see clearly. Ben wanted the crew out looking, but I looked outside and it was 20 below zero. The idea had to be abandoned. 10 minutes after the time, Old White finally found the float. The crew then began fishing for crab pots. Take a machine, slowly force. The first dock yielded a handsome harvest. After a wave of sorting by the crew, there were 200 animals in the cage. Old White was quite satisfied with the harvest. A second harvest followed. The crew sorted out 240 of them. It will take less than 2 days to meet the quota based on this harvest. And the crew is pretty excited about it. Then the Old White command put crab pot in place. In the third cage, the crew went crazy for good luck. This third cage is no less than 200. Not waiting for Old White to continue to be happy, I turn my head and see an ice floe. It shouldn't be a cluster. It should be a big cluster. This gave Old White a fright, because he originally assumed he'll be here in the morning. It turned out to be a full day early. Undeterred, Old White walked on for another few hundred meters. The result is that the ice pack has arrived, and he covered his crab pot. Old White could do nothing about it. The crew had to be told to withdraw temporarily. At any time, the crew will gather up the crab pots. All White can do now is wait. The picture came to Dutch Harbor. The legend has arrived. Anderson also brought in divers. Divers checked the bottom of the boat. Anderson was telling the story of that night. After the story of the accident, Anderson said he made $50,000 a day. Now she's stuck in the harbor, unable to get out. Otherwise, you just go blah, blah, blah. Time passed a half an hour later. The divers have now finished their inspection. The diver then reports back to Anderson. He said the paint was off the bottom of the boat. There is no problem other than that. I heard it was just paint falling off. Anderson breathed a sigh of relief. After the divers are paid, Anderson told the crew to head out to sea. But Mason has some bad news for Anderson. He wants Anderson to report. The oil filter in the gearbox is full of water, and dirty water with rust on it. Anderson felt like the sky had collapsed. I have so much to worry about all day. Now there's dirty water in the filter. Then prove the oil in the gearbox. A lot of seawater already mixed in. If we don't get the oil back in time, the gearbox rusts until it's useless. Anderson then stopped the crew. Tell the crew to follow Mason to the repairs. 360 miles northwest of the Northwest. It's been 30 hours since the ice arrived. They also pulled out half the crab pots. Old White is going west to the ice-free area. Old White didn't want to move, but there is no way out of this situation without leaving the ice pack. Old White has no temper either. The time came half an hour later. The crews got the flow pretty much right. Old White also arrived at the predetermined area. Then the crew began to cast the cage. After reaching the specified depth, the crab pot enters the sea. Old White is going to throw the crab pot down this time. When you're done, go back to your granddaughter. If you fail, you lose 50 grand. As the crab pots drop one by one, the storms are getting stronger on the surface. And then the accident was not unexpected. Old White is still confused at this time. Then Clark reports another hydraulic hose blew up, and it's the deepest hidden pipe. Old White instantly felt finished. The crab pots on board are now frozen. If we don't fix it soon, the ship sank on their inevitable end, unless a brave man is willing to cut the crab pot line. Of course, those who cut the cord end up dead. So White still wants to see it. The crew repaired the hydraulic pipe of the lift. The angle of the landfall is increasing. Clark had to hurry to make repairs. Through Clark's efforts, the hose still hasn't been fixed, but Clark plugged the leak. Let's just say it's okay for now. I'm glad this thing worked after the test. The crew scrambled and began to cast cages, with one crab pot into the sea. Back to the Dutch Harbor legend. It's been a day since repairs began. The crew in this day. I fix things here when I'm not eating. Anderson's too busy to shave. The time came again half an hour later. Mason is finishing up his repairs. Now we just need to fill up the oil. As Mason plugs in the oil line, the crew also confirmed from the scale that the fuel had been filled. At this time, Anderson above is also very nervous. Anderson lit the fire after receiving the notice. But Mason found out more bad news. Rust suddenly appeared in the water cooling system. After we inform Anderson of the situation, the light went out of Anderson's eyes. Because the water is cold, rust is likely to clog. Wouldn't it kill you to jam up the engine? Anderson asked Mason if he could sail. Mason's answer is definitely no. Anderson thought for a moment, decided to risk engine damage and go out to sea. With Anderson like this, the crew had no choice but to obey. The Winona, 210 miles northeast. There are now 8 days left until Sean's quota submission date, but he still has 2 allotments to catch. So he has to make sure he gets it in 2 days. 6 more days to finish the second batch. Can't stick to the plan exactly. It all depends on how good the sea is. Then the crew began to salvage. The first harvest looks good. The crew sorted out 25 of them. Then began the second cage. It turns out the crew's hands weren't fast enough to catch the line. As a result, the boat went over the line. I can't get the rest of the crew up here. Sean wanted to give this crew a big mouth. But it's a good thing the reel's on. The crew hurried to the stern to check on the situation. Good thing the float was wrapped around the propeller. I didn't let Sean's worries go to waste. Then Sean tried to step on the gas. Turns out the propeller must not have moved. The floaters down there are so tangled up. Sean can't do anything about it. We had to crank up the throttle. Just cut the fishing line. Good. Sean hasn't made much money yet. First, I lost a $2,000 crab pot. The crew is deeply sorry for this. Good thing Sean didn't say much. Preserved a last measure of decency for the sailor. The crew resumed the salvage after the incident. 380 miles northwest of the Northwest. The temperature here is 30 below zero. Even ocean waves can quickly freeze in the air. It also has winds of up to 30 knots. And the crew, every day. It takes 4 or 5 hours to de-ice. This makes the crew at work very tired. Old White is now worried that the crab pot will not catch any more crabs. The crew would have walked out on the spot. Then the crew began to salvage. Soon the first crab pot is on board with no chicken feathers. Old by Camp Bear to watch the broken harvest. Then began to salvage the second cage. There were only 2 caught in it. The next cage was empty. The crew was getting bored. What can White do about it? Aboard the Southeast 370-mile Legend. They are now in the target area. It's just the weather around here isn't very good. Count up the time it took to get there. The crab pot I put in when I returned to Hong Kong has been soaked for 3 days. Anderson doesn't know if the monster cage still works. So he had the idea of moving the crab pot from place to place. Then the crew began fishing for crab pots. Take-up machine began to slowly exert force. Mason also went to the machine room to check the water cooling. The crew started cheering before the crab pot reached the shore. Anderson also cracks a satisfied smile. With the crab pot on board is a lot of harvest. The crew sorted out 39 legitimate cod. The second harvest was no less impressive. But after sorting, there were only 22 conforming cod. The subsequent harvest is of no concern. The harvest is basically stable at around 35. Anderson's got a big smile on his face. As time goes by, the crab pot also caught a 7, 8, 8, which also means it's time for them to scoop up the monster cage. It was also the moment Anderson feared the most. This thing weighs 6 or 7 tons when fully loaded. Anderson was worried his reel wouldn't hold up. The crew then began the salvage operation. With the monster cage out of the water, the crew put up the boom. The monster cage snapped as soon as the boom arm hit. Although it was a bit of a surprise, but the boom is still more powerful. Full yard, no critical moment to lie down. As they rise, the crew sees plenty of cod. 5 minutes later, the monster cage was set up. The crew began to sort the cod. Then time came to the Winona. They've been harvesting for 4 hours. Each cage produces a steady harvest of about 30 animals. And they've almost met their quota. And in the meantime, Rookie Will didn't make a mistake. Sean was also rare in his praise of Will. With their last harvest on board, view to the northwest. Old White, after 4 days of searching, I finally found a bunch of little crabs. Although the harvest was not great. But at least I'm not losing money now. This video also ends on the Northwest. Do you want to know what happened next? See the chart below for Captain's earnings.